Hello everyone, Miss Ryan here. Today we're going to learn how to draw one-point perspective. Now you may be wondering what one-point perspective is. Perspective is a method that artists use to create the illusion of depth on a 2D surface, and it's used in combination with other depth cues. I have an example of one-point perspective in my file shown here. It's an image of a railroad track with telephone poles going into the distance. You'll notice that it looks like the sides of the railroad tracks appear to converge to one point in the distance. This is how we create the illusion of space. The point where planes that are perpendicular to the picture plane, which would be going back into space, is called the vanishing point. So where all the telephone poles and the railroad lines appear to converge here, that's called the vanishing point. There's also a line that the vanishing point rests on here. This line represents our eye level. It's called the horizon line. There's also other depth cues. You may notice that telephone poles look like they normally would look. That's because they're parallel to the picture plane. But they do get smaller the closer to the vanishing point they get. When something gets smaller like that, it appears to be further away. So that is another depth cue that we use in one-point perspective. Today we're going to be doing something like this. I'm going to be drawing just a cube that rests on the horizon line, so you can see how we can draw the illusion of one-point perspective using a horizon line and a vanishing point. The program I'm using to do this demo is called Sketchbook Pro. However, you can do it at home with a pencil, piece of paper, and ruler. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to establish my horizon line. My horizon line represents my eye level. So if I go up here, I should have my ruler. There it is. And what I like about this ruler, it will actually show you the degrees in which your ruler is tilted. So we can make sure to have it perfectly straight at 0 degrees when it's going horizontally and perfectly straight at 90 degrees when it's going vertically. That being said, you don't need this at home. You're training your eyes and becoming an artist, so you should be able to see straight lines and eventually replicate them even without a ruler. So the first thing I'm going to do is establish my horizon line. That's the line that represents my eye level. You don't want to do it in the middle of the page because that will divide your page in half, and that's not as interesting as, let's say, putting it just a little bit higher than halfway above the page, which is where I'm going to put mine. Make sure I have my pencil. Make sure I have a good color. Right now it's purple. I'm going to turn it to a very dark charcoal gray and draw my horizon line. Just a little bit above halfway the page with my ruler perfectly horizontal at 0 degrees. Once I have my horizon line, let's just draw that in a little bit more. Once I have my horizon line, I'm going to establish my vanishing point. And I don't need my ruler for that. Your vanishing point can be anywhere on your horizon line, but for the sake of this exercise, we're going to put it right in the middle of the horizon line, representing it with just a little dot. So whenever we're doing planes that would go perpendicular to the picture plane, they're going to go to that vanishing point. To start off drawing our cube, I know this cube is going to be at eye level, which means that it's going to overlap the horizon line. We also talked about that if something's parallel to the picture plane, it's not going to be distorted in shape. So one of the things that we can do is we can start out with the vertical lines and horizontal lines that would make up the front face, or the face that's closest to us, of the cube. So I'm going to grab my ruler. And I always start with the vertical lines because that helps me place it along the page. So I'm going to make sure my ruler is at 90 degrees. And I'm going to draw a line that's approximately 2 inches, doesn't have to be exact, with the middle of those 2 inches resting on the horizon line, and draw my first vertical line. Notice that I'm not overlapping the vanishing point. You're not going to get a good effect if you're overlapping the vanishing point. It's going to look like just a flat image. So that's why I'm a little bit to the right of the vanishing point. Maybe I would say about an inch and a half right to the vanishing point. So I'll turn my ruler to 90 degrees, or 0 degrees, sorry, here. I'll draw another line that's about 2 inches long. Okay. Let's move it over just a little bit. There we go. And again, it doesn't have to be exact. I'm just eyeballing it here. But I'm making the face about 2 inches. So it's 2 inches on each side. And the nice thing is you don't have to do anything fancy. You can just draw the cube as long as you have straight lines and they're parallel to the picture plane. So 0 degrees again. So just to go over that again, I drew the first horizon line. It was the first vertical line about 2 inches, and I'm letting the middle of it rest on the horizon line. Then I drew the bottom horizontal line, the third vertical line to the right, and then the top horizontal line. For horizontal lines, your ruler will be at 0 degrees, and for vertical lines, your ruler will be at 90 degrees. Now, I have to make my planes that are going to go back to the vanishing point. We call these longitudinal planes, the ones that are perpendicular to the picture plane. So I'm going to put one point of my ruler connecting to the lower left-hand corner of my face there, and put the other part of my ruler connecting to the vanishing point. And I'm going to draw a line that connects the two, like I'm connecting the dots. For that line, my ruler was at a negative 40 degrees. I don't have to move my ruler for the vanishing point. I can just change it to it connects to each corner of the box. So now I'm going to move to the top left-hand corner of my square there. So my ruler's at 34 degrees. I'm going to draw a line. Now I'm going to connect my ruler, still leaving the other side on the vanishing point, to the upper right corner of my front-facing face there. Ruler is at 15 degrees, and I'm going to connect it. Now, last but not least, the bottom corner, negative 17 degrees, connect it to the vanishing point. It does not matter the order of when you put these corners. And the truth be told, it doesn't matter what degrees your ruler is at, as long as you're connecting the corners of the face to the vanishing point. So now what I have to do is I have to make the sides of the cube that are further back in space. They're not going to be 2 inches long because, like the telephone pole, we know that things get smaller the further into space they get, or the closer to the vanishing point they get. Now what we're going to do, I'm just going to move my ruler down and find an intersection of this longitudinal plane here. That's that left side of the cube, that left longitudinal plane that we can easily see. And I'm going to just kind of eyeball what I think would be 2 inches in space. So really it's about an inch away from the corners of the front-facing face that we drew first, and it's going up vertically at 90 degrees, and it's also about the size of an inch. So it's about half the size of our first vertical line. Okay. So we have all the makings of a cube here on the right side of our page, but we have some lines that we don't need. You can see that I have some stray lines coming outside of the face, so my corners aren't very clean. I also can see through the cube like an ice cube, and I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my eraser and erase the lines that I don't need. So those lines include anything that's inside the box that doesn't represent a corner of the box. So you see on the left longitudinal face here, I'm erasing the horizon line and that perspective line, that line that goes back towards the vanishing point that exists inside the box. And I'm also going to erase all the unnecessary perspective and horizontal lines inside my front facing face. If I need to re-go over any lines, I can pick maybe a darker pencil or even an ink pen. Get my ruler and just line it up so I'm redrawing the right vertical line of my cube. Now the bottom horizontal line, my front facing face of my cube. Just getting those lines nice and solid and clean. Vertical line that represents the corner of the cube on the left, the front facing face. The top horizontal line of the cube. The top and bottom of the cube where they go back towards the vanishing point. And the vertical line to the left that represents the side of the cube that is smaller due to distance. Congratulations everybody, we have a cube in perspective. In our next video, I'm going to show you two other cubes in perspective in something called a worm's eye view and a bird's eye view, where it's above and below our eye line or the horizon line. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a wonderful day.